The massive black stone chamber buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the curved seats that rose in circles around the central floor. The Galactic Empire's War Council had been meeting for 3 days and tempers were running high. Admiral Zethkalar slammed all 4 of his armored fists on the metal table. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. His red eyes glowed with fury as he stood up on his thick legs. The other council members turned to look at him. Even among the Empire's warriors, Zethkalar was known for his anger and his skill in battle. "Enough talk," he roared. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "We have wasted 3 days discussing the same problem. The humans refuse to bow to our authority. They will not pay our taxes. They reject our trade offers. Worse than all of this, they spread their chaotic ideas to other worlds in our empire." The crystalline Vorthak representative clicked and chimed in agreement. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors with her emotions. Right now she glowed angry red. "The humans are a disease," she said in her musical voice. "They make other species question our rule. Some colonies now ask why they must follow our laws when the humans do not." On the other side of the chamber, the insectoid Krex delegate buzzed his wings rapidly. This was a sign of excitement among his people. "Yes, yes," he clicked. "The human settlements grow larger each cycle. They build new colonies on worlds we marked as ours. They do not ask permission. They simply take what they want." Admiral Zethkalar nodded his massive head. "The humans have shown us no respect since we first met them. When we offered them membership in our empire, they laughed at us. They said they did not need our protection or our guidance. Such arrogance cannot be allowed to continue." The Luminari representative floated above her seat, her ghostly blue form flickering with emotion. Her people were made of pure energy, and rarely showed strong feelings, but even she seemed angry. "The other species watch the humans carefully," she said in her whispering voice. "They see that humans face no punishment for their defiance. This makes them brave. Some worlds have already stopped sending tribute to the Empire." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Empire had ruled most of the known galaxy. Hundreds of species paid taxes, followed imperial laws, and accepted imperial protection. The system worked because everyone understood the rules. Those who obeyed were protected. Those who did not obey were crushed, but the humans were different. They had appeared in space only 50 years ago, spreading out from their small corner of the galaxy. At first, the Empire had not worried about them. They seemed primitive and weak. Their ships were ugly and simple compared to imperial vessels. Their weapons looked crude and basic. The Empire had sent the usual first contact team to offer the humans a choice: join the Empire as a protected species, or be conquered and absorbed by force. Almost every species chose protection. It was safer and easier than fighting. The humans had listened politely to the Imperial offer. Then they had said no. Not just no to joining the Empire. No to everything. No to tribute payments. No to following Imperial law on their worlds. No to accepting Imperial protection. They had simply said they would govern themselves and asked to be left alone. The Empire had been shocked. In 1,000 years, no species had ever refused their offer so completely. The Imperial Council had decided to give the humans time to think about their mistake. Surely they would realize how dangerous the galaxy could be without Imperial protection. Instead, the humans had kept expanding. They built new colonies on worlds the Empire had marked for future development. They made trade deals with species that were supposed to trade only with Imperial merchants. They welcomed refugees from worlds where the Empire's rule was harsh. Worst of all, the humans seemed happy. Their colonies were peaceful and prosperous. They had no crime, no wars among themselves, no rebellions. Other species began to ask uncomfortable questions. If the humans could live safely without Imperial protection, why couldn't everyone else? Admiral Zethkalar looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow council members. He saw anger, fear, and determination. The Empire's power came from the belief that it was necessary. If that belief cracked, everything would fall apart. "The time for patience has ended," the Admiral announced. "The humans have had 50 years to see the wisdom of joining our empire. Instead, they have chosen to mock us. They make us look weak in front of the entire galaxy. This cannot continue." The Vorthak representative's crystal body flashed bright white with excitement. "What do you propose, Admiral?" Zethkalar's forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. "War, total war. We will crush the human colonies and show the galaxy what happens to those who refuse imperial authority. We will make an example that will be remembered for 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in cheers and roars of approval. The various species made their sounds of agreement. Clicking, buzzing, roaring, chiming, and whistling filled the air. The decision seemed obvious to everyone present. The humans were small and weak. The Empire was vast and powerful. It would not even be a real war, just a quick demonstration of imperial might. All in favor of immediate military action against the human colonies. Admiral Zethkalar called out. Hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose throughout the chamber. The vote was overwhelming. Only one representative did not raise his hand to vote. In the back corner of the chamber, an ancient figure sat quietly in his chair. General Morden of the Kythera had not spoken during any of the 3 days of discussion. His people were among the oldest members of the Empire. They had fought in the great wars that created the imperial system. They had seen species rise and fall across the centuries. Morden was old even by Kythera standards. His gray skin was wrinkled and marked with the scars of countless battles. His 4 eyes were cloudy with age, but they still held the sharp intelligence that had made him one of the Empire's greatest military leaders. Admiral Zethkalar noticed the general's silence. "General Morden," he called out, "you have not voted. Surely the Empire's most experienced warrior supports action against the humans." The chamber fell quiet. Everyone turned to look at the ancient general. Slowly, painfully, Morden stood up from his chair. His movements were stiff and careful, but his presence commanded respect. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "You know not what you invoke," he said. The words seemed to hang in the air like a warning. The general's tone was not angry or excited like the others. It was sad and tired, like someone who had seen too much death and destruction. Admiral Zethkalar frowned. "What do you mean, General?" "The humans are a small, primitive species. They have no advanced weapons, no large fleet, no powerful allies. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." General Morden looked around the chamber at the eager faces surrounding him. These young warriors had never fought a real war. They had only known the easy victories of the past few centuries when the Empire conquered species that were already weak and divided. "You think you understand the humans," the old general said quietly. "You see their simple ships and basic weapons. You count their colonies and think them few. You look at their peaceful nature and believe them weak." He paused and his ancient eyes grew dark with memory. "You are making the greatest mistake in the Empire's history." The chamber was completely silent now. Even Admiral Zethkalar seemed uncertain. General Morden straightened his bent back and spoke words that would haunt the War Council for the rest of their lives. "I have studied the humans' homeworld. I know what Terra truly is, and if you choose this war, you will learn why some victories are worse than any defeat." The War Council chamber had never been so quiet. General Morden stood in the center of the room, his ancient frame casting a long shadow across the floor. The excited energy from moments before had vanished completely. Now there was only tension and growing unease. Admiral Zethkalar tried to regain control of the situation. His voice was still confident, but there was a small note of uncertainty that had not been there before. "General, with respect, perhaps your age has made you overly cautious. The humans are clearly primitive. Our intelligence reports show they have only basic technology and simple weapons." The old Kythera general turned his 4 cloudy eyes toward the admiral. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries of military experience. "Your intelligence reports tell you what the humans choose to show you. They do not tell you what the humans truly are." Morden moved slowly to the center of the chamber where a large holographic display waited. His movements were careful and deliberate, like someone handling something dangerous. With a gesture from his weathered hand, the display activated. The image that appeared made several council members gasp in shock. It was a planet, but unlike any world most of them had ever seen. The continents were covered in swirling white clouds. The oceans were a deep blue that seemed almost violent in its intensity. Lightning storms raged across the surface like angry gods. "This is Terra," General Morden said quietly. "The human homeworld." The Vorthak representative's crystal body had turned a nervous yellow color. "It looks so chaotic. How can anything live on such a world?" "That is exactly the right question," the general replied. "Terra is classified as a Class 2 Deathworld in our Imperial database. Do any of you know what that means?" The chamber was silent. Most of the council members had never heard the term before. Morden continued his explanation, his voice growing more serious with each word. A Deathworld is a planet where the environment itself is actively hostile to life. The gravity is too strong. The atmosphere is poisonous, the weather is deadly, or the native creatures are too dangerous for normal evolution to occur. The holographic display changed to show charts and numbers. The data made the council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Terra's gravity was nearly twice that of most civilized worlds. The atmosphere contained high levels of oxygen, which was actually a corrosive poison to many species. Temperature variations swung from deadly cold to killing heat. Most planets in our empire are Class 1 or Class 2 worlds, the general explained. Safe, stable, predictable environments where intelligence can develop peacefully. A few frontier worlds reach Class V or Class 6, which we consider barely habitable even with advanced technology. He paused and let the numbers sink in before continuing. In our entire database of explored worlds, we have found only 12 planets that qualify as Class Thothene Deathworlds. Terra is one of them. It may be the worst of them. The insectoid Krex delegate buzzed his wings nervously. But surely no intelligent species could evolve under such conditions. The environment would kill them before they could develop civilization. General Morden's expression grew darker. His scarred face showed the kind of grim knowledge that came from seeing too much horror in a long lifetime. That is exactly what makes the humans so dangerous. They did not just survive on Terra. They conquered it. The holographic display shifted again, showing the evolutionary history of Earth. The council watched in growing amazement and horror as the data revealed the truth about human development. Terra had suffered massive extinction events throughout its history. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, ice ages, and climate disasters had regularly wiped out most life on the planet. Every few million years, Terra tried to kill everything living on its surface, Mordoon explained. 90% of all species would die, but somehow new life always emerged from the survivors. Stronger, more adaptable, more desperate to live. The display showed creatures that looked like nightmares. Massive predators with teeth like swords. Pack hunters that worked together with frightening intelligence. Parasites that could control the minds of their hosts. Each extinction event had created new horrors, and somehow life had not just survived but thrived. The humans evolved alongside these monsters, the general continued. While our ancestors developed intelligence on safe worlds with gentle climates and peaceful creatures, humans were learning to survive in a hell of constant danger. Admiral Zethkalar was beginning to look worried, but he still tried to maintain his confidence. Even if their homeworld was dangerous, they have been in space for only 50 years. They cannot have developed truly advanced military technology in such a short time. General Morden turned to face the Admiral directly. His four eyes seemed to look right through the younger warrior. You still do not understand. The humans do not need advanced technology to be dangerous. They are the advanced technology. The holographic display changed once more, showing video recordings from the Empire's first contact missions to human worlds. The Council watched human colonists working on planets that would require full environmental suits for most species. The humans wore only light clothing and seemed completely comfortable. Watch carefully, Morden instructed. These humans are living on a world with twice normal gravity, an atmosphere that would burn the lungs of most species, and surface radiation that would kill a Vorthak in minutes. They are not just surviving, they are building cities. The crystal Vorthak representative had turned a pale, frightened blue. How is that possible? Because they evolved on a world where those conditions would be considered mild, the general replied. Terra taught them to adapt to anything. Their bodies are living machines designed for survival in impossible conditions. The display showed more footage. Human children playing games that looked like military training exercises. Human workers lifting objects that would require mechanical assistance for most species. Human traders walking through environments that the Empire considered uninhabitable. But perhaps most importantly, General Mordoon said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, Terra taught them something else, something that makes them more dangerous than any weapon or technology. The entire chamber leaned forward, waiting for his next words. It taught them that survival sometimes requires terrible choices. It taught them that the difference between civilization and extinction is often just willingness to do whatever is necessary to live another day. The general turned off the holographic display and looked around the chamber at the faces of the council members. Where there had been confidence and excitement before, now there was uncertainty and growing fear. You want to declare war on a species that learned warfare from a planet that spent billions of years trying to kill them, he said quietly. You want to fight creatures that survived by becoming more dangerous than everything else on the most dangerous world we have ever discovered. Admiral Zethkalar's voice was much quieter now. What are you suggesting, General? That we should simply accept human defiance? Allow them to ignore Imperial authority? General Morden was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of prophecy. I am suggesting that before you wake a sleeping monster, you should be very certain you can survive what happens when it opens its eyes. General Morden moved back to the holographic controls with slow, deliberate steps. The War Council watched him in complete silence. The excitement and anger from earlier had been replaced by something the Empire's warriors rarely felt: uncertainty. You think you understand death, the old general said as he activated new files. You have seen battle. You have conquered worlds. But none of you have truly understood what it means to live on a world where death is not an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be learned from. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Terra's ancient history. The council members saw a world in constant chaos. Volcanoes erupted with the force of nuclear weapons. Asteroids crashed into the surface, throwing up clouds of debris that blocked out the sun for years. Ice ages froze entire continents solid. Terra has suffered 5 major extinction events in its history, Mordoon explained. Each one killed almost everything alive, but each time something survived. And what survived was always more dangerous than what came before. The display showed the progression of life on Earth. After each extinction, new creatures appeared that seemed designed by nightmares. The council watched in horror as massive predators hunted across the screen. Sharks that had remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years because they were already perfect killing machines. Giant reptiles that ruled the land with teeth and claws. Look at this creature, the general said, highlighting a pack of 4-legged hunters. Wolves. They hunt in coordinated groups using complex strategies and communication. They can track prey for days without stopping. They work together like a military unit. The Krex delegate buzzed nervously. Impressive, but hardly more dangerous than the pack hunters on many worlds. Morden's scarred face showed the hint of a grim smile. You have not seen the most dangerous predator yet. The display changed to show new creatures. At first, the council members were confused. These looked weak compared to the massive beasts they had seen before. They walked upright on 2 legs, had no natural weapons like claws or fangs, and seemed small and fragile. Early humans, the general announced. They appeared less than 1 million years ago. By Terra's standards, they are a very young species. Admiral Zethkalar frowned. They look completely helpless. How could such weak creatures survive on a death world? Watch and learn, Morden replied. The display showed early humans hunting, but they were not hunting the small, weak creatures that most species targeted when they first developed intelligence. They were hunting massive mammoths that weighed tons and had deadly tusks. They were tracking giant cave bears that could crush a human with one swipe of their claws. They could not outrun their prey, the general explained. They could not overpower it with strength. So they developed something else. They learned to hunt by never giving up. The council watched in amazement as the humans followed their prey for days and nights without stopping. When the massive animals tried to escape, the humans simply kept following. When the creatures tried to fight, the humans used tools and teamwork to stay safe while wearing down their enemies. Persistence hunting, Morden said. They turned their weakness into strength. They could not run faster than their prey, so they simply ran longer. They hunted by refusing to quit until their target collapsed from exhaustion. The Luminari representative flickered with confusion. But this seems like a primitive hunting method. Many species use persistence. No, the general said firmly. Many species chase prey until they get tired and give up. Humans chase prey until the prey dies from exhaustion. There is a very important difference. The display shifted to show human development over time. The council watched as these creatures spread across their deadly homeworld. They learned to survive in frozen wastelands where other creatures died from cold. They lived in deserts where the heat would kill most life forms. They built homes in swamps filled with diseases and poisonous creatures. Terra kept trying to kill them, Morden explained. So they learned to kill Terra back. The holographic display showed humans learning to control fire, the same force that had caused massive forest fires and volcanic destruction. They learned to predict weather patterns that had killed their ancestors. They domesticated the same predators that had hunted them. "Look at this," the general said, showing footage of humans with wolves. "These creatures that we saw hunting in deadly packs. The humans did not just defend against them. They turned them into partners." The council watched in amazement as humans and wolves worked together to hunt even larger prey. The partnership seemed impossible. How could predators learn to trust each other instead of fighting? "The humans understood something that most species never learn," Morden continued. "Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them into an ally. They did this with wolves, with other creatures, and eventually with the planet itself." The display showed human civilization developing at incredible speed. They learned agriculture in only a few thousand years. They developed mathematics, science, and engineering while still fighting for survival against their hostile environment. They built cities that could withstand earthquakes, storms, and floods. But the most important thing they learned, the general said, his voice growing darker, was warfare. The holographic display shifted to show human conflicts throughout history. The War Council had expected to see primitive battles with simple weapons. Instead, they saw something that made their blood run cold. Humans had not developed warfare as a necessity for survival like most species. They had developed it as an art form. Their conflicts were not simple territorial disputes or resource wars. They were massive, complex, and terrifyingly efficient campaigns of destruction. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind, Morden explained. Wars that lasted for years or even decades. Wars that required them to develop new technologies just to survive the fighting. The display showed weapons that made the council members gasp in shock. Chemical gases that could kill thousands in minutes. Bombs that could destroy entire cities. Flying machines that could rain death from the sky. They created weapons so terrible that they scared themselves, the general continued. Bombs that could destroy their entire world. Poisons that could kill every living thing on the planet. And then they looked at these weapons and decided not to use them. Admiral Zethkalar was staring at the display in disbelief. They developed planet-killing weapons and then chose not to use them. Why? General Morden turned to face the Admiral with his ancient, knowing eyes. Because Terra taught them one final lesson. It taught them that survival sometimes requires restraint, that the most dangerous predator is the one that knows when not to kill. The display showed modern human space exploration. Their ships were simple and functional, not the advanced vessels the Empire expected from a species with such destructive capabilities. Their colonies were peaceful and well-organized. Their military forces seemed small and defensive. "This confuses you," the general observed, watching the council's reactions. "You see humans being peaceful and think they are weak. You see them avoiding conflict and believe they are afraid." Pause to let his words sink in before delivering the truth. That would change everything. "You are seeing a Deathworld, species that has learned to control itself. You are looking at predators so dangerous that they have to constantly hold back to avoid destroying everything around them." The chamber was completely silent. The general's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "And you want to declare war on them," Morden said quietly. "You want to give them a reason to stop holding back." General Morden could see the doubt growing in the eyes of the War Council. The confidence that had filled the chamber an hour ago was cracking like ice under pressure. But he knew that doubt was not enough. These warriors needed to understand the full scope of their mistake before it was too late. "You still do not believe me," the old general said, reading the faces around him. "You think I am an old soldier telling scary stories to avoid a difficult war. Let me show you reports from our own people, reports that your intelligence services chose not to share with this council." The holographic display activated again, showing classified Imperial files marked with the highest security levels. Admiral Zethkalar leaned forward, his four eyes widening as he recognized documents that were supposed to be seen only by the Empire's top commanders. "These are intelligence reports from our encounters with human colonies over the past 10 years, Morden explained. "Read them carefully. See if you can spot the pattern that terrified our field agents." The first report appeared on the screen. It described a routine survey mission to a newly discovered human colony world. The Imperial scouts had expected to find a struggling settlement on a marginal planet. Instead, they found a thriving city of 2 million humans on a world that Imperial scientists had classified as uninhabitable. The planet they chose has surface temperatures that swing from -40 to +60 degrees in a single day, the general read from the report. The atmosphere contains sulfur compounds that would burn the respiratory systems of most known species. Radiation levels are 3 times normal background levels. Our survey team required full environmental suits and could only stay on the surface for 4 hours at a time. He paused and looked around the chamber. The humans living there wore light clothing and worked outside all day without protection. The Vorthak representative's crystal body had turned a sickly green color.
How is that possible?
Even with advanced technology, such conditions should be deadly. The humans were not using advanced technology, Morden replied. They were using basic environmental gear that any species could build. The difference was not their equipment. The difference was them. The display showed more reports. Each one told a similar story. Imperial scouts finding human colonies in places where no sane species would try to live. Worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, deadly radiation, extreme weather patterns. Worlds that the Empire had marked as useful only for mining operations with heavy robotic equipment. Every single human colony we have observed has been established on what we would consider a hostile world, the general continued. At first, our intelligence services thought this was because humans were primitive and did not know how to choose good planets. Then they realized the truth. Admiral Zethkalar's voice was quieter now, uncertain. What truth? The humans were not settling these worlds because they had no choice. They were settling them because they preferred them. They felt more comfortable on dangerous planets than on safe ones. The display shifted to show video footage from a human mining operation. The Council watched as humans worked in environments that would require the Empire's most advanced protective equipment. The humans used simple gear and seemed completely at ease in conditions that would panic most civilized species. Watch their body language, Morden instructed. Do they look afraid? Stressed? Uncomfortable? The humans in the video were relaxed and efficient. They moved through their deadly environment like they were taking a walk in a pleasant garden. Some of them were even laughing and joking as they worked. This video was taken on a world with gravity heavy enough to crush most species, the general explained. The atmosphere is so corrosive that our analysis equipment failed within minutes. The humans have been working there for 3 years and consider it one of their more pleasant colonies. The insectoid Krex delegate buzzed his wings in distress. But surely they must have limits. There must be environments too dangerous even for them. General Morden's expression grew grimmer. Our intelligence services have been testing that question for 5 years. They have not found those limits yet. The display showed a classified report from Imperial spies who had tried to infiltrate human space. The mission had been designed to gather information about human military capabilities and defensive weaknesses. Instead, it had become a study in human adaptability that had left the spy teams traumatized. Agent Team 7 was assigned to observe human military exercises. Morden read from the report. They expected to see basic training operations suitable for a primitive species. Instead, they witnessed what they described as preparation for warfare in hell itself. The holographic display showed footage secretly recorded by Imperial agents. The War Council watched human soldiers training in environments that looked like alien nightmares, combat exercises in crushing gravity, weapons practice in poisonous fog, survival training in landscapes that seemed designed to kill everything that touched them. The humans call this basic training, the general said quietly. This is what they consider normal preparation for their youngest soldiers. The Luminari representative flickered with confusion and fear. But why would they train in such extreme conditions? What enemies could possibly require such preparation? That is exactly the right question, Morden replied. The humans are not training to fight any specific enemy. They are training to be ready for anything. Their military doctrine is based on the assumption that they might have to fight a war anywhere, under any conditions, against any opponent. The display showed more footage. Human soldiers practicing combat in zero gravity, underwater in extreme heat and cold in complete darkness, in environments with poisonous atmospheres. Each exercise looked like a torture session designed to break the spirit of prisoners. The humans treated it like routine work. Most species train their military to fight on planets similar to their homeworld, the general explained. Humans train their military to fight everywhere else in the universe. Admiral Zethkalar was beginning to look seriously worried. But surely this is unnecessary preparation? The galaxy contains many safe, stable worlds. Why prepare for such extreme warfare? General Morden turned to face the Admiral with the full weight of his ancient knowledge. Because humans understand something that we have forgotten. They know that war is not a game with rules and boundaries. They know that when survival is at stake, the universe itself becomes your enemy. The display showed intelligence reports from human diplomatic missions. The council members expected to see evidence of aggressive expansion plans or military buildup. Instead, they saw something that confused them even more. Human diplomatic teams consistently try to avoid conflict, Mordoon read from the reports. They offer generous trade terms, provide aid to struggling colonies, and show remarkable patience with aggressive neighbors. They seem genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence. The Vorthak representative's crystal body flickered with confusion. If they are as dangerous as you claim, why do they work so hard to avoid fighting? Because they understand the cost of war better than anyone else in the galaxy, the general replied. They know what happens when a truly dangerous species stops trying to be civilized. The holographic display showed the final classified report. It was marked with security levels so high that even Admiral Zethkalar had never seen them before. The report was titled Assessment of Human Military Capabilities Worst-Case Scenarios. This report was prepared by our best strategic analysts, Mordoon explained. They were asked to estimate what would happen if humans abandoned their peaceful policies and committed fully to warfare. The numbers on the display made the entire War Council fall silent. Projected casualty rates, estimated destruction levels, calculated time frames for total galactic conflict. The analysis painted a picture of warfare so complete and devastating that it was almost impossible to believe. According to our best estimates, the general read slowly, a fully committed human war effort could result in the collapse of interstellar civilization within 50 standard years. Not just the defeat of the Empire, but the complete breakdown of organized society across most of the galaxy. Admiral Zethkalar's voice was barely a whisper. These numbers cannot be accurate. No single species could cause such destruction. General Mordoon closed the classified files and turned to face the entire War Council. His ancient eyes held the weight of terrible knowledge. The analysis assumes that humans would fight the same way they have always fought on Terra, with complete commitment, absolute adaptability, and no concern for their own survival as long as they achieve victory. It assumes they would treat the entire galaxy the same way they treated their homeworld when it tried to kill them. He paused and let the implications sink in before delivering his final warning. Terra tried to destroy the humans for millions of years. Terra failed. Do you really think the Galactic Empire will succeed where an entire planet could not? The War Council chamber had become a place of stunned silence. Admiral Zethkalar sat heavily in his chair, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. The other council members stared at the now dark holographic display, their minds struggling to process what they had learned. General Mordoon stood quietly in the center of the chamber, watching the faces around him. He had served in the Imperial military for over 2 centuries. He had seen the rise and fall of dozens of species. He had watched civilizations destroy themselves through arrogance and ignorance. He would not let it happen again. You are thinking that I have exaggerated the threat, the old general said, breaking the silence. You are telling yourselves that no species could truly be as dangerous as I have described. You are looking for reasons to dismiss what you have heard. The Krex delegate buzzed nervously. General, surely you must admit that some of these reports seem unlikely. The humans appear so peaceful in their current behavior. How can we reconcile this with the threat you describe? Mordoon nodded slowly. That is exactly the right question. Let me show you one final piece of information, something that will help you understand why the humans behave as they do. The holographic display activated one last time. Instead of showing weapons or battle footage, it displayed something unexpected: human children at play. The War Council watched in confusion as young humans ran around in what appeared to be a simple game. The children were laughing and seemed to be having fun. It looked completely harmless. This is a common human children's game, General Mordoon explained. They call it tag. One child chases the others. When caught, a child becomes the chaser. Simple and innocent, yes? The council members nodded, still confused about why the general was showing them this. Now watch more carefully, Mordoon continued. Pay attention to their movements, their strategies, their endurance. As the footage continued, the council began to notice details they had missed before. The human children were running at speeds that would challenge adult members of many species. They maintained these speeds for extended periods without showing signs of fatigue. Their movements were coordinated and tactical, showing complex spatial reasoning and predictive thinking. These children are between 5 and 10 years old, the general said quietly. They are playing a game that would serve as advanced military training for adult soldiers in most of our species. The Vorthak representative's crystal body flickered with realization. They do not even know they are training for war. Exactly, Mordun replied. Human culture is filled with activities that develop military skills without the participants realizing it. Their games teach them tactics, endurance, teamwork, and aggression. Their sports prepare them for combat. Their entertainment glorifies warfare and strategy. The display showed more examples. Human sports that involved complex team coordination and physical competition. Human entertainment that focused on conflict and survival. Human education that emphasized problem-solving under pressure. They are a species that trains for war from birth, the general continued, not because they want to fight, but because their homeworld taught them that preparation for conflict is necessary for survival. Admiral Zeth Kalar finally found his voice again. If they are constantly preparing for war, why do they seem so committed to peace? General Mordun's ancient face showed something that might have been respect. Because they understand the true cost of warfare better than any species in the galaxy. They know what they are capable of, and it terrifies them. The holographic display shifted to show human historical records. The Council saw documentation of their own wars. Cities destroyed, populations displaced, entire regions rendered uninhabitable. But these were not records of victories to be celebrated. They were records of tragedies to be remembered and avoided. Most species remember their military victories with pride, the general explained. Humans remember their wars with horror. They teach their children not about the glory of battle, but about the terrible price of violence. The display showed human monuments and memorials. Instead of celebrating conquest, they honored the dead and reminded future generations of the cost of conflict. Museums displayed the devastation of war, not its triumphs. They know exactly what they are capable of doing to their enemies, Mordun said quietly. They also know what warfare does to the warriors who fight it. So they choose restraint. The luminary representative flickered with understanding. They are not peaceful because they are weak. They are peaceful because they are too strong. Yes, the general confirmed. The humans have imposed strict limits on themselves. They could expand aggressively across the galaxy, but they choose to grow slowly. They could demand tribute from weaker species, but they prefer fair trade. They could use their military advantages to dominate others, but they choose cooperation instead. Admiral Zethkalar was beginning to understand the full scope of the Empire's mistake. And if we attack them, we will be teaching them that restraint does not work, General Mordun finished. We will be showing them that peaceful coexistence is impossible. We will be giving them permission to stop holding back. The holographic display showed a final image, a map of human space compared to the full extent of the Galactic Empire. The human territory looked tiny, just a small cluster of stars in one corner of the galaxy. It seemed insignificant compared to the vast reaches of Imperial space. Look at this map, the general instructed. What do you see? I see a small, weak territory that could be easily conquered, Admiral Zethkalar replied, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. I see a species that has deliberately limited its expansion to avoid threatening its neighbors. Mordun corrected. I see a Deathworld species that has chosen to remain small and contained instead of spreading across the galaxy like a plague. The general moved closer to the map, pointing at the human territory with one weathered finger. The humans could have claimed 100 times this much space by now. They have the population, the technology, and the capability. But they have not done so because they understand something we have forgotten. Unlimited growth leads to unlimited conflict. He turned to face the War Council one final time. If we attack them, we will be destroying the very restraint that has kept them contained. We will be teaching them that their peaceful approach has failed. We will be forcing them to choose between survival and civilization. The chamber was silent for a long moment. When Admiral Zethkalar finally spoke, his voice was very different from the confident roar that had filled the room earlier. What do you recommend, General? General Mordun straightened his ancient frame and spoke with the authority of someone who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. I recommend that we abandon all plans for military action against the humans. I recommend that we approach them not as conquerors, but as neighbors seeking peaceful coexistence. I recommend that we do everything in our power to ensure that they never have a reason to abandon their policy of restraint. The Vorthak representative's crystal body had turned a deep blue color of serious thought. And if the other species in the Empire see this as weakness, if they begin to question Imperial authority, then we will have to find new ways to maintain order, the general replied. Ways that do not require us to threaten a species that could destroy galactic civilization if they chose to do so. Admiral Zethkalar looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. The excitement and bloodlust from earlier had been completely replaced by sober understanding. The vote that had seemed so obvious an hour ago now seemed like the worst mistake in Imperial history. All in favor of opening peaceful diplomatic contact with the human colonies? The Admiral asked. Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the chamber rose in agreement. The vote was unanimous. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Admiral Zethkalar approached General Mordun. The old warrior was standing quietly before the holographic display, looking at the image of Terra rotating slowly in space. General, the Admiral said quietly, do you truly believe the humans could destroy us all? Mordun was quiet for a long moment, studying the blue and green world that had produced the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Admiral, he finally replied, I have studied Terra for decades. I know what it takes to survive on a Deathworld. I understand what kind of species emerges from millions of years of constant warfare with their own planet. He turned to face the Admiral, and his ancient eyes held both infinite respect and cosmic terror. The question was never whether the humans could destroy us. The question was whether they would choose to do so. Our job now is to make sure they never have to make that choice. Outside the War Council chamber, the great machinery of the Galactic Empire began to shift direction. Orders went out to contact human diplomatic representatives. Trade delegations were organized. Cultural exchange programs were planned. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire would approach another species not as conquerors, but as very careful neighbors of something far more dangerous than themselves. And in the distant spiral arm where Terra spun in its deadly orbit, the humans continued their peaceful expansion, never knowing how close they had come to being forced to show the galaxy what a Deathworld species looked like when it stopped holding back.